Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we return as we preview and look ahead to Wolves to come in the Premier League for Spurs on Sunday. Fair to say, there's been quite a lot that's happened still in the drama, the soap opera that is Tottenham Hotspur, over the course of the last 24, 48, 72 hours as we wrap up all the latest Spurs news and views. And as I've mentioned, look ahead to the weekend. Helping me do that, I've got three returning, calm, composed, quieter guests than normal. What you on about? Back on the show, David of the Irish Hotspur. Dave, how are you? Lovely to have you here. You well?
I'm keeping well, Ricky. Thank you very much. It's been a while. I've avoided some of the chaos, but I'm back again. Thanks for having me, man.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure. Also back on the show, tells as it is, Johnny Hamme's back in the house. Johnny, how are you, my man? You okay?
All good, all positive, all positive. We didn't lose. That's a positive.
Absolutely. And you've not been able to say that much this season on the back of it, have you, really? Let's be honest about it.
No. The sun is shining. We didn't lose. And I'm flying to Germany, with a chance. And that's all I asked for.
All we asked was a chance, and we've got a chance. Also back on the show, this is an exclusive for you. We'll drop this one now. The man, the myth, the legend, London Lubo's in the house. Ian, lovely to have you here. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, all good, thanks. Good to be back.
Here, mate. Good to have you here, mate. Good to have you here. Like I say, we'll give some reflections on the back of that Frankfurt game and obviously feelings about the fact the second leg does remain alive and kicking for Spurs. I am acutely aware and we are looking at trying to fix some issues with regards to our comment section at the moment. I know StreamYard and YouTube are trying to work that in the background, so don't be alarmed. We can see your comments, although they're not showing through on the live chat. Look, it's Tottenham. Something would always be broken, right, in this football club. So our live chat is broken. Don't worry. They'll be coming through eventually. Look, we mentioned about the fact that the game itself against Frankfurt was one where I know many Spurs fans went into it with an air of trepidation. There was maybe concern about how Spurs were going to really, in terms of the first 90, navigate, control the tie. But I think the genuine feeling is when you look back at the game itself where, the good thing is Spurs created a whole host of chances. You could argue, though, on their day, they could have and maybe should have taken away, at least a morale-boosting victory in the game. It ended 1-1. I mean, Dave, I'll open up with you because there'll be a feeling that there will be maybe a slight tinge of regret that we don't go in to that second leg against Frankfurt, at least holding some form of an advantage out in Germany, which we know it's going to be a tough place to go, right?
Yeah, look, I think many Spurs fans, when you look at our away form in Europe down the last few years, we've lost to Patras de Frere away from home, Vitesse Arnhem, Dynamo Zagreb going out there with a lead in the last 16 under Jose Mourinho. We got bet. Our way of form in Europe hasn't been good the last few years, and I think that's what makes many Spurs fans nervous going into next Thursday, heading out to Germany, that we don't have that, a lead in our back pocket. I think my initial reaction when coming out of last night's game was, could this come back to bite us like Liverpool in the Carabao Cup semi-final when Porro had a massive chance to give us a 2-goal lead? We didn't take it. And, ended up coming back to bite us away in the Carabao Cup second leg out in Liverpool. So, I think many Spurs fans are maybe a little bit disappointed in that aspect. But I think we put on one of the best performances that we've seen from Tottenham in a long, long time. I think in general, the tactics worked last night. What Ange is trying to do here in general, it worked last night. I think where it came back to bite us was having that lack of killer instinct that I tried to highlight in the summer when I was on here, that I don't think we brought in the summer that we really needed to bring in. And I think that's where it's come back to bite us last night. Created a lot of chances. Yes, there was a degree that we were unlucky to a certain degree, but in general, just having that player to step up in the moment, that sort of match winner, it's clear to me that it's still missing from this team. And it doesn't help when, Pedro Porro sort of sucks the life and enthusiasm out of everyone 7 minutes in. I know Maddison gave away the ball in the midfield, but Porro, when Etitike was running forward with the ball, all he's got to do is show him on the outside. There's no support up with him. The only thing he can do at that moment is cut in and get a shot off. And that's exactly what we allowed him to do. We put ourselves on the back foot. We shot ourselves in the foot. But the mentality after that to sort of regroup, regain focus with everything that's gone on this year, I think they deserve a lot of credit. And at the end of the day, I think very unlucky. But again, missed opportunity. And how many times have we said that with Tottenham Hotspur?
We have. Yeah, I mean, we have. Look, Johnny, look, Ange retains the belief Spurs can still make it through to the semi-finals of the Europa League. And look, as I said in my opening there today, there's no doubt we should have taken much more command of that first leg. I think in that second half, you had 4 chances in the space of 4 minutes. Arguably, if you take 2 or 3 of them, we go into that second leg a little bit more calmer than what we would do, obviously, next week. But, look, the tie is far from over, and Frankfurt have lost 3 times at home in March. So how will your mood be going to Germany a week from now?
Listen, I'm a lot more hopeful. They came into the game with a lot of injuries. I know, we go on without injuries. They had injuries. They had no Knauf. They had Chandler was on the bench. They had 3 players on the bench who had just come back, who got a couple of minutes. They started well. Their striker, we knew all about him coming into the game, and he took the goal very, very well. I mean, David's right about Porro, but there were 5 defenders or 5 players around him when he got that shot off. In fact, the one got nearest to him was Lucas Bergvall, who for me was outstanding again last night, head and shoulders above everybody else, which is quite incredible for a 19-year-old who looked to me to be like the senior player at times out there. But yeah, Dave said, we didn't sign the players to finish them off, but, we signed Solanke for 65 million, Odeber. We won't even mention the other person who's no longer playing for us. He seems to have retired eating schnitzel somewhere. But I think we will rue the opportunities that we missed last night. The interesting thing is, that Frankfurt seemed to struggle against the low block. And if we're going away from home next week and we play cautiously, I think we got enough to hit them on their counter-attack. Where I fear, if we get too brazen and we go toe-to-toe with them, they are much better in transition through the stages, through the pitch. And that's where they're going to be strong. There were cases in last night's game, especially in the first half, where they had like 4 against 2 and better passes and being more clinical, they could have caused us a lot more trouble. I think we are going to be in it. The atmosphere obviously is going to be a major part of it. The thing that peed me off more than anything was they were visibly tiring. You could see it from about 75 minutes. They really looked like we're tiring. And I'm waiting, and I couldn't understand why Ange hadn't made substitutions earlier. Sonny, apart from his shot, was MIA, and Maddison was slowing down, so nothing was going right for Solanke. And, I'm watching, Richarlison prowling along the touchline there, looking like a leopard waiting to jump on his kill. And I just thought that had we acted earlier, I mean, Richarlison came on in the 88th minute, which for me is absolutely bonkers. I think earlier, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and he always goes on, Ange, about Mr. Hindsight. Maybe I'm Mr. Hindsight, but I think that could have helped us secure the points. But we were very unlucky to hit the bar 3 times. Yeah. And I'll finish on the fact that there was lots of positivity in that second half. But it was the same old. Why? I'll ask the question, why can't we come out for a game of this magnitude in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, like them up the road, like they did against Real Madrid, like we're on fire, right, for that 20 minutes. Like someone's delivered them the greatest speech ever when they come out that dressing room. Didn't see any of it. It was all flat for that 20 minutes. We can cure that, and if we go to sleep in that first 20 minutes in Germany, we're going to pay the price.
We see how we do approach that. I mean, the ironic thing is, when you look at Spurs in terms of their goal scoring record, coming over to you, Lubo. Spurs are the second highest scorers in the Premier League. They're also the joint 6th highest scorers in the Europa League, and they're actually also the competition's highest ever scorers, accumulating 336 goals. But with the game last night, I know you touched on this as well, and I heard your other shows that they could have take those chances and maybe miss the chances that really Frankfurt presented them. Was it a missed opportunity, Lubo, or was you fairly pleased with the performance given the last few weeks we've seen with Tottenham?
I thought it was a more positive performance. All also considering we pretty much played with 9 men yesterday because Johnson and Son weren't even there. Were they playing? I think it was just really poor. I was a bit dispirited when I saw the team sheet. You know, most goals against us in terms of right and left flanks have come down the right. And he left Spence out in the biggest game of the season, who is the best defender out of him, Porro and Udogi. So to leave him out, you know, particularly with Ekatike there as well, I thought massive mistake, and it cost us. So that cost us after 6 minutes. It was a really slow start. I thought Frankfurt were knocking the ball around much quicker. The play was much more fluid. First 20 was poor. We rebuilt well. We came back, really good goal. The one thing Solanke did the whole game, get on the end of that diagonal ball, feed Maddison. Maddison did his magic, and Porro took it brilliantly. We were wide open. I think, you know, we get caught, don't we? I mean, Romero went missing once or twice, and I mean that situation right on half time, and it's 4-2. I mean, with clever play, they could have actually walked that ball round us and into the net. We got lucky there. Second half, much better. Yep. Really positive. I mean, we had that 4-minute spell, didn't we, where I think we've hit the bar twice.
Yep.
And Sonny's had the shot that was tipped round the post by the keeper. For me, it was a really big opportunity lost, because we should have gone there with some sort of lead. What worries me, I think we've got some sort of chance next week, because they'll pin us back and we're much better playing as a counter-attacking team. But what worries me is that we've got a manager who is not going to turn around, you know, sets teams up to play certain games, like Eddie Howe as a perfect example with Liverpool in the League Cup final.
Yep.
We haven't got a manager that does that, and we don't have leaders on the pitch. You know, if the going gets tough, who's gonna rally the troops? Who's going to keep everybody going? We haven't got anybody. So for me, if they dig in like they did at Brentford this season, then we've got half a chance. If we can get it to penalty, we don't even have to win it. We can get to penalties. You know, with Vicario there.
Is that going to make me feel better?
anything's possible. But listen, the odds are stacked against us now.
Yeah.
So, you know, we should have been going there with at least a 1-goal lead, probably 2.
Yeah, listen, I mean, the good thing is the tie is still very much alive. And for Tottenham, I think, you know, with the season that we've had, it would be ironic that when you look at, if you want to look at some crumbs of comfort for Tottenham in the most recent form, is that, you know, Frankfurt, they've lost 2 of their past 3 matches inside their own stadium since the beginning of March, as I touched upon. And Spurs, as we know, they're going to have to be far better away from home than they've been really all season if they are going to have to go and get a result. And I think, Johnny, you touched upon it in your intro, and so did Dave, that the atmosphere in Frankfurt, they're going to make a lot of noise, those fans. So not only, as you said there, Luba, not only if we have to rely on the leaders, we're going to have to rely on being able to handle that kind of atmosphere that is going to come our way. Because at the end of the day, as we know, it's not going to be easy there. So we shall see. Look, it's been a last few days, really, of some really interesting news that's come out of the football club. They've seen a new appointment in the camp where Tottenham have gone to a familiar North London rival to do some research on a new CEO that has come through the door. And from what we're hearing, that could mean bad news for current football man of operations, Scott Munn, who is now reportedly under pressure in his own role following the appointment. And I've got to get this right, of Vinai Venkatesham, who has come in. He's the new Tottenham CEO.
Ricky. Well done, Ricky.
Well, we're trying. I'd say for Tottenham, it's an interesting appointment, because I think for many that, and it's actually on the show, we said it last week with regards to when we did that show with Kieran Maguire, that there's not many changes that normally happen high up in the Spurs boardroom. So it's an interesting one with relation to what Spurs are doing and bringing in. So just to be clear on that statement, that has come from the football club, and this is from the Standard as well, that Tottenham have appointed former Arsenal director as their chief executive in a dramatic boardroom shakeup that does raise question marks about Chairman Daniel Levy's stranglehold over the football club. Now, Vinay, who was the Arsenal chief executive for 4 years until leaving last summer, will fill this newly created role at Spurs in a move that does signal major changes in the way the club is run. Now, the man himself, he at Arsenal grew. This is where Daniel Levy probably is keen on bringing him in. He grew the annual revenue from 340 million to a record 615 million. He was in charge of all commercial, operational, and sporting matters, including the development of the women's team, which has gone on to sell out the 60,000 capacity seater stadium at the Emirates. He's an Oxford executive qualified management consultant, and he's also the chair of the Wembley Stadium Advisory Board and also worked on the London 2012 Olympics. Daniel Levy, knowing this guy, has said the club has experienced significant growth in recent years, making it crucial to expand our executive management. I have known Vinai for many years, having worked together in the Premier League and the ECA. I'm personally delighted that he has agreed to join our board as we build for success. Vinai said, I'm excited to be joining Tottenham this summer. After taking some time to recharge and evaluate my options, I believe this is an exceptional opportunity to work with Daniel, the board, and all of the staff to take the club forward. Let me start with you, Johnny. What do you think that means for Tottenham? You said actually off air, this is a really exciting move. Tell us why.
Well, first thing he's got to do is lose the bloody red tie. I mean, you can't be going to the Boardroom in that tie. Look, that's no tie. That's perfect. Look, the guy's come in and he's taken Arsenal. He brought in Edu and he brought in Arteta. We all know what Edu has done as far as recruitment is concerned. And whatever your thoughts on Mikel Arteta, I personally can't bear him. But when you look at what he's done from a football point of view and what he's done, Edu has done, Edu is a really, really top operator. And the guy knows his onions. When he left Arsenal after this considerable amount of time, he was offered jobs in Saudi Arabia. He was offered top jobs in private equity, and he turned them all down because he wanted a year off. This, to me, says to me that there's something major going on at the club. Now, when you couple the fact that the guy who's now taken over the trust in the Joe Lewis Trust is a guy with a deep history of mergers and acquisitions. And then you bring on someone like Vinny onto the board who carries a lot of credibility. So if you're a Saudi investment company or you are a Qataris and you see someone like Vinny is there on the board to drive that bottom line, that for me is a major, major plus. And when the club is looking for financing in capital intensive projects, like the hotel, like Whitewebs, like the training ground extension and the women's team and so on and so forth, you need someone with the authority. And I really do think that this guy, you know, there are very few guys at CEO level that have operated at two clubs at the highest level. You know, maybe Peter Kenyon, what's the other one? Omar Berardi, was it at Chelsea? Yes, there are very few, and he operated at both. I know there'll be some blowback with the fact because he used to be, you know, with Arsenal and all the rest of it. I couldn't give a damn about that. If he brings back Fabio, right, and Fabio, as we all know, was there the other night, and he gets rid of Scott Munn, and he gets rid of Johan Lange, and we start the drive. This guy's a serious operator, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is a prelude to some inward investment coming in the not too distant future. And I, for one, you know, are happy. It's one small step. You know, I'm very much changed for Tottenham, as is Lubo. Yep. And as Billy T and all the rest of them at Change of Spurs have done a fantastic job. This is one step, you know, on the journey. Hopefully, you know, this is the start of major change for the better at the club. And I welcome this, despite him being from Arsenal.
It's interesting, I mean, Dave, coming over to you. Look, there is some really good experience in there. He did hold a variety of roles at Arsenal, as Johnny alluded to there. He was setting the wheels in motion for the Edu Arteta regime. And there are some rumours that Edu left partially because of a result of Vinay's exit and going on to make some mistakes, in behind the scenes there since his departure. But, it's interesting. You've got the situation where Peter Charrington has come in, as we know, from only recently to join the football club as well. As I mentioned in my opening speech, we haven't seen many changes at the higher echelons of board level, Dave. So is it a positive or is it kind of wait and see? Because from what we do understand, reports indicating that this is bad news for Scott Munn. And also indications are that in general, this is going to be quite a high role that he'll have to take on here.
Yeah, look, there's not been a lot of clarity around what he's actually going to be coming in and doing on the club website at all. Look, from my understanding, my research into the guy, he is, very good with finances, bringing in deals, funding and all that sort of stuff. And when you look at his job title compared to Scott Munn's, it is slightly a little bit different. So I'm just wondering, does he come in over Scott Munn in terms of, for all the money side of things, and Scott Munn is still chief football officer, where he still overlooks the women teams and stuff like that. But what I would say is, I think, they do have similar experience. I think Scott Munn was involved in some Olympics committee out in Australia, but this guy was also involved in the Paralympics and the Olympic committee as well for 2012. So, I wonder, is a part of it to help grow like the women's side of the game and all that sort of stuff. And I wouldn't mind if he brought back Adidas, by the way, as our shirt sponsor either. That would be absolutely brilliant. I think he brought that to Arsenal, if I'm correctly. I want to get back to getting Adidas involved. But I also wonder what it means, because maybe there was, people were starting to think that on the quiet, maybe there has been, there could be a takeover on the horizon or even the investment. But I would, when I'm trying to maybe look between the lines, bringing in this guy, is also he going to be a part of that, in terms of maybe it shows that we haven't sealed what we've been looking for, that maybe he's the guy that can maybe try and get that done over the line for what we need, because we know that Daniel Levy has been looking for investment into Tottenham, and I just wonder, could this guy be the guy that could maybe broker that deal? But look, I'm very hesitant to say that he can come here and put the right changes inside where it's going to have a massive effect on the football pitch. It might, in terms of being able to get, the right money for the right transfers and right caliber of player and stuff like that. But I'll be hesitant to say that it's definitely going to make a change on the football pitch. I do think when I look at his CV, I think it's more to help keep growing the financial side of what we're doing at Tottenham Hotspur and get more deals done on that side of things, in my opinion.
You can't get away from it.
I was just going to add, Ricky, he was pictured outside Arteta's house, right? He was instrumental in getting Arteta to come to the club. He wasn't like, I hear what you're saying, Dave, and I totally get the skepticism, and I join you. But, when you delve deeper into this guy's background and you see he is quite hands-on. Listen, you and I are both got perfect synergy here. We'd love to see Scott Munn and Johan Lange depart and bring back Gabby and Fabio and have working under this guy. But I do think, his links with the Middle East, the Saudis, private equity, the guy who's just come onto the board, like I mentioned before, on the trust for Joe Lewis. There seems to be a lot of synergy going on here. Not all the stars are aligned, but maybe the stars are positioning themselves to align for what may come in the next few months, hopefully.
Look, it could be a case that when you look at it, with this guy coming in, doesn't mean like what Johnny was alluding to, that the likes of Johan Lang, Scott Munn, and potentially Ange, that's all coming to an end. this will have repercussions on Ange Postecoglou as well. Make no mistake about it. Could be a case that they're getting ready to clear deck for another, for us to go in a different direction in the summer. It could be that case. But just when I look at the guy's CV, a lot of his time has been spent on getting brand deals done, in the financial side of football. I think he spent the majority of his time in Arsenal actually on the financial side. And it was only the last couple of years that he stepped into that role, bringing Edu and Arteta in. But before that, a lot of his time at Arsenal was on the financial side. And when we're looking for investment, we haven't secured it yet. I just reckon that maybe Levy thinks this is the guy that'll do it.
It's interesting. I mean, Luo bringing you in, as I mentioned earlier, he did grow that annual revenue from 340 million to a record 615 for Arsenal. I just wonder how much of that Daniel Levy likes about the revenue indication. But it was also worth me putting out there that apparently Spurs did have to fight off competition for his signature, with Newcastle apparently also very, very keen to bring his services in. But Spurs did beat them off. And I think many, from what we understand, have seen this as being a major coup for Tottenham. Can we say that as fans, or do we have to wait and see what it holds?
I think if he helps to bring investment in terms of new owners, I'll be absolutely delighted. Levy can't help himself. He's all over everything at the club. How long till he's all over this guy? To me, nothing changes. We need top people who are running the football club and know what they're doing for the team. You know, fantastic. They've got 30 events. Wonderful. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what's going on the football pitch. That's what I'm travelling around the country. In terms of my view as a shareholder, I haven't got that many shares that's gonna make a massive difference to my life when they do sell. I bought shares in the club because I'm a fan, not because I wanted to make money. If I wanted to make money, what I should have done was just carrying on buying the shares when I had the chance, and then when they were split 6 ways, I'd have made some money. But for me, it's all about the football team and being a fan. And if he's in to build the revenue up, then fantastic. But the wage bill keeps coming down. We're not buying the right players. We've got nobody who buys the right players, who identifies the right players. Particularly for me, it's just about the football. This is just someone else to shield Levy. Sorry, until they go, nothing will change. I'm sorry to sound skeptical, but this is 24 years now. Enough. It's enough. Get these owners out. We need a new start. We need new people at the top, fresh ideas, and a mentality and a culture that is a winning one.
Yep.
Not these people that want to win at making money and couldn't give a damn about winning trophies. So that's where I stand, Ricky.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, I think the issue that we've got at the moment is that we are waiting, aren't we, to see the difference he's going to make to the football club. And until he really comes in and we see what he does and doesn't do, it's only then we can have a verdict on it. But I think it's interesting because, again, I will stress those reports are really strong at the moment that Vinai's appointment does mean bad. It feels indications for what Scott Munn's future is at the football club. So that we'll update you if we hear anything more with regards to either Scott's situation or how Vinny is taking the reins. So that's an imminent appointment for Tottenham that will be happening in the near future. One man that was back at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium watching, taking the Frankfurt game, as we alluded to, was Fabio Paratici. Obviously, Johnny, this move, but the news of Fabio being back at the stadium comes on the back of the news that move to AC Milan fell through end of last week. I mean, at the moment, we have to be clear. I don't think he's actually free to resume a full role in football until, I believe, early June, when that suspension does come to an end in terms of the worldwide ban. I know you've been banging the drum on this so much that you'd love to see him back in, of course, the surroundings at Tottenham. Is this a good sign, though, the fact we're seeing him in the stadium, present as a free agent, you'd arguably say at the moment? He is a consultant for the Tottenham, I must say. Is it a good indication that we're seeing Fabio back at games and potentially an opportunity where he will become a full-time member of Spurs' staff once again?
Well, I would certainly hope so. He was certainly doing the rounds last night. There he's in 2-2-3. I know he was wandering around saying hello to a few people last night. So, look, if he wasn't going to be at the club or have nothing to do with the club and he was going to Italy, why would he bother coming last night? And as usual, he's pictured on his phone. I don't think he's playing Tetris. He's probably talking to someone important. Look, Dave and I love him, right? Honestly, after all these years of Steve Hitchin and all the nonsense that we've had to do, I know a lot of people go at me and Dave for going on about how great he is, but it's what you can't see behind the scenes of what he's done, not so much, what's above ground, what you can see is what's underground and is hidden. I think he really was a breath of fresh air for the club. Just remember when he came in, when he brought Kulu and Bentancur into the club, how transformational they were in those months from the January onwards, and what he's doing with what he did with the academy and everything else. We all know what he's done. Some people will focus on the mistakes. Yes, they're mistakes, but there isn't a DOF that hasn't made mistakes in football. But what we have is a manager, a director of football that has passion for the club and knows football. Right, he's been around. You don't stay at Juventus for 10 years and win the awards that he won as a director of football with not knowing your stuff. And I really hope, if my cousin Vinny is in, and I hope he's like Vinny and grabs hold of Levy's balls and squeezes him for all the money that he can get. That would be great. But no, this. If we got Vinny and Fabio, I would really be going into the next season really feeling much more positive than how I feel now. Please lose the red tie, Vinny, please. But I feel much more positive if that was to happen.
Johnny, you share the same view. Dave, you share the same view in regards to obviously Paratici. If he's going to come back to the club, that'll be a big plus going into the summer.
100%, I think it'll be a huge plus. When you look at a lot of, say, for instance, Steve Hitchens' recruitment, the money we spent and the money we recouped is not. We lost out on most of the money that we spent under Steve Hitchens in terms of trying to recoup it back. With Paratici, a lot of the signings that he's made, we will go on to sell for more than what we've paid. And I think that's his recruitment will stand the test of time. Look, yes, you can point at some of the players like your Gills and stuff like that, but what director of football has 100% hit rate? I would also argue, I think, he speaks to Daniel Levy in Daniel Levy's language, which actually gets a bit more out of him. And what I mean by that is, before in years gone by, we've completely neglected that youth academy and that system. A lot of them players that we have now, the talents in and around the club that we've produced, the likes of our Donnellys and stuff, we wouldn't have if Paratici didn't, persuade Daniel Levy to, expand the budget for these academy players, expand the wages for them to be able to sign on the dotted line. And then you're also looking at the ones that don't come into the team, you're then selling on as well for massive money as well. He puts all this to Daniel Levy. He makes him see the money side of it, which then actually helps us out in turn moving forward. And I think he'll be a huge plus when he gets here. Not only that, he was in and around the place, in and around the squad on match days. He knew what players were pulling their weight and what players weren't. I think there's huge pluses to having this guy. And people also forget, he put a scouting department in place, which was practically non-existent when he walked into this football club. He's done a lot of good for this football club. And I think, you look at the recruitment since he's been out of the job, I think, it hasn't been anywhere near good enough. I think we've squandered a lot of money to a large degree, and it hasn't been for what we needed to kick on. And I think that's where Paratici hopefully can come back in, grab the reins, and keep building what he was trying to build here in the first place. Because, me, Ricky, ever since I sort of started coming on here, I have been hammering on about the recruitment to a large degree. And I think, with him coming back, I do think you'll see that change, because I think with Johan Lang, we've gone down one route too soon. He's gone down the route where he wants to sign a load of young players, whereas with Paratici, not only did he sign young players, but he also signed the players for the here and now. And also, last thing on Paratici, he stretched our budget. How many summers were we told nothing left, and he goes and brings in a loan with an option or an obligation to buy? He stretched the budget. He still got in, the maximum out of what he could. I think that's where a lot of director footballers have failed at Tottenham, and almost use Levy as their excuse for not being able to make it work. Paratici didn't do that, and I think getting him back in here would be a smart move by Levy. Let's not forget, this guy said, he was in the awe of him for about 10 years previous, so he should be doing everything he can to get him back in here. Daniel Levy apparently really likes Paratici, respects him, and stuff like that. So for me, it's a no-brainer to try and get this guy back in the door. Look, I have to say, it's not Daniel Levy's fault that he left. It was the ban and stuff that he done over in Italy. But the reality is, now that you've got an option to get him back and continue on, get him back.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how that will pan out. On the subject of recruitment, Lube, I want to come over to you. There's been suggestions that City have added to their summer shopping trolley Destiny Udogie in their list of targets. City consider Udogie one of the top young players they have in the remit of players they'd like to bring in the summer. and among the crucial ones to build a bright future at their own football club. But from what we're being told is that negotiations with Daniel Levy are known to be very, very difficult. So City are aware of that situation. For you, Udogie, Lubo, what do you make of his time so far at Spurs? Have you seen enough to think this guy's worth keeping hold of?
Definitely. But we've got to get a new manager in who's, he was bought as a wing back, wasn't he?
Yep.
And he joined the club, and Ange has come in and played him in the wrong position completely. And I thought yesterday, for the first time in ages, he seemed to be getting back to where he was when he first joined, when he first started playing. He was driving at players, he was beating players. He's a quality player, and you've got to keep him. I
just wonder, Lubo, is it down to that? I mean, I've suggested this as well for me as well, that I think the system, you'll see a lot, in my opinion, of improvement in players once they're playing a better system to suit them. I mean, that's with Porro as well. I think, again, with the centre-backs as well, if you haven't got Van der Ven and Romero so far up the pitch and you drop them back 15, 20 yards, I think defensively, we will look a lot stronger. There will be less mistakes. I think with someone like Udogie, not being caught so far up in possession like he has been previously will be a benefit to him, right? This is the key.
Well, I think, first of all, you start with a back three, which would suit Porro, Spence, Udogie.
Yep.
That's the start. You bring a 6 in as well. So, there's so much that has been wrong for the last 2 seasons. Just everything. We talk about recruitment. Let's just take January as a small snapshot. Why are we spending 12.5 million on Kinski? We've got 6 keepers at the club. Gunter's highly regarded. Keely's having a really good season. That was a waste of money. TEL, what are we doing? Spending 10 million on a player who wasn't what we needed. For me, we needed somebody to come in, maybe score 10 to 15 goals, put themselves about, make a difference, maybe be able to come off the bench and score and, be a match winner. Somebody like, you're not going to go out and no one's going to give away their best strikers. And we know there's a dearth of good centre forwards in the Premier League. Someone like, in the same sort of area like a Llorente, when we brought him in.
Yep.
For me, would have been perfect. TEL was just the wrong attempt to bring someone in to try and lift the team. Totally wrong. So you wasted 10 million there. You wasted 12.5 on Kinski. You wasted another 8.5 on Werner. So that's 31 million, basically, that has been thrown away, just tossed away, just blown. You might as well just taken it to a casino and put it on a roulette table. It's just a shambles. So and you look at Solanke. We've spent the best part of 60 million. And they talk about, Levy turns around and talks about this whole data analysis, and we're following Brighton and we're following Brentford. Well, the guys had one decent season, fine. You're bringing him in off the back of that season. What are his assets? What are his strengths? We don't play to his strengths.
No, I know. Yeah,
There's actually no point buying Solanke. You've got to buy somebody to fit the system.
Yep.
So there's another 60 million. It says 90 million.
Yep.
That's just 90 million in the last 9 months. No, less than 9 months. That has just been thrown away. And that's why we need somebody in to come in. Yes, Kulu Moani would have been excellent, Alex. But, if you've got a choice of Juve, Man United or Tottenham, we're number 3 on that list. So we need somebody to sort the recruitment out. Paratici brought in Vicario. For me, there's no better shot stopper. He's up there shot stopping with Alisson, Edison, and Martinez. For me, they're the top 4 shot stoppers. Udogi was brought in. Everyone was excited. He was brilliant in Italy, and he got in for under 20 million. It's the recruitment has gone.
Yeah, I think
recruitment has been appalling in the last 18 months.
Yeah, you can't get away from that, Luba. You make some very, very valid points there that, it's hard to disagree with. Just on TEL, because we've had some conflicting reports today on Matisse TEL. So just to bring you up to date on what we've heard in the last 24, 48 hours on Matisse TEL, and I'll bring it over to Johnny and Dave as well to have their say on where we are with TEL at the moment. So I will tell you, barring any sudden changes, Tottenham reportedly earlier in the week were expected to send TEL back to Bayern Munich. Daniel Levy is unlikely to approve a 60 million outlay on a striker who's only played 10 matches since February. Now, Ange had been quick to deny this in his pre-match press ahead of Wolves and said, look, don't believe anything that you read in the German press. Any press read these days, I shouldn't say press, but just general information. The David being double-checked, triple-checked, triple-sourced are long gone. No, Matisse is important for us. When he came in, people forget he hadn't hardly played at all. And with Bayern, we just threw him in. He was a player game after game after game, and it was always going to be a big, big ask for him to come here, but that was a challenge that he faced. Now, we're working with him really, really hard. We really believe he can make an important impact, and physically, he's a much better player now than what we saw at the start of him featuring for us. He's a much better place. He's getting to understand our game a lot more, so we'll keep on working with him, and I still think he's an exciting talent, and we are very, very happy to have him. Now, there's been also reports out, Postecoglou, who suggested that Tottenham are very happy with TEL and are considering a permanent move, but no final decision has been made yet. He understands Spurs definitely want to renegotiate with Bayern the fee at the time, which was between the 50 to 55 million clause as a buyout option, because at the moment, Tottenham are not willing to activate that clause based on the fee involved. But again, just to be clear, Tottenham are happy with TEL. They're still considering a permanent move. No final decision yet to be made, but if Tottenham are going to make a decision, they are going to renegotiate that fee involved. What's your takeaways from this, Johnny, on the mixed messaging with regards to TEL?
Well, there's always mixed messaging when it comes to Ange. He says one thing and then does another. I love the guy. I talked him into coming and then doesn't play him. They said time will tell if he's any good. No pun intended. But, at 10 million for the loan and 10 games, it's £1 million a game plus wages. Come on, guys, right? This is nonsense, okay? You've got to renegotiate it. If you want to pay 20, 25 million and give him a cut of the sell-on, fair enough, right? But, if he's going to stick to that money, send him back. We're going by the lap. We're going by the lap for that money and have some change. Thank you very much.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, have we even seen enough Johnny to even suggest he should be here on a permanent basis? He's had 10 games. I don't mean that specifically to the kid. But again, my problem at the moment is that, are we seeing the players in their best light right now? I don't believe that. This is another problem where, again, under maybe a more, with all due respect, an astute coach, somebody that is going to give these players a bit more of a decent system to work with, I'd be intrigued because, again, he's a young player. I also don't believe Bayern Munich get rid of bad players, right? And the fact that it seems to be very clear that, from what we understand, he has no future at Bayern Munich, and Vincent Kompany has made that clear, and the club are pushing to sell him. Maybe a bit of a concern in there, Johnny.
Yeah, listen, look, let's cut to the chase here. We're talking about 50 to 55 million pound for a 19-year-old kid who has scored one goal in 22 games in 980 minutes, and that was a tap-in in the Carabao Cup, right? Before the penalty on the weekend. I mean, that's going to be a farce, isn't it? They handed him stop Johnson getting his hat-trick if he ends up going back to Bayern Munich. Look, he hasn't shown enough. No disrespect to the kid, but we don't need any more Solanke's 65 million and 7 goals. We don't need any more Timo Werners. We need to be in the winning business, right? And, they say Man City are after Destiny Udogie. Well, how much is Udogie in the window? Not enough. Not enough money in the window to make us part with him, I'm afraid, unless, it's serious money. We need to be a serious club now. If you're buying the likes of Kirkes or Cunha or Mbueno, right, that's the stuff that we should be going for, not trying to be smart in the window. And we're going to have to be smart in the window because if the likes of Romero go, we have to be smart in our recruitment. Gay's got 1 year left. Huijsen, has only got another year left and he can be bought out. We have to be really smart. And paying £50 million for a kid who can only be blocking, in my opinion, Mikey Moore's journey.
Yeah.
Is not right. We don't need to be doing that. Bring in a Delap, right, or bring in someone who's going to make a change to this football club, not blocking the path of youth. And as Lubo quite rightly said before, bringing in Kinski when you've got someone like Josh Keeley, who's only 2 years younger than Kinski, makes absolutely no sense to me and smacks of a director of football who doesn't understand the direction of this club. And I, for one, I hope he goes on and has a very good career. I hope he proves me wrong, and if he does stay. But if we're going to renegotiate and say take a £25 million fee for him and give them, I don't know, 40% of any sell-on profit, not a problem. I'm willing to take a gamble at 25 million, but we do not need to be taking risk at this level. Not anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. Isn't it? Go on, Lubo.
Can I just clarify in terms of how I feel about recruitment? Anyone who sees me on podcasts know that I love Gray and Bergvall, and I think they are two terrific purchases. He's done well playing out of position. Bergvall now is coming through, and for me, I put him in front of first on the sheet in front of Bentancur, Sarr, and Basuma. Danso was also a good squad signing in January, but we needed established players, and we didn't get them. The only established player we got was Solanke. We got rid of Højbjerg, we got rid of Lo Celso, we got rid of Skip, we got rid of Emerson.
Dyer.
You know, they weren't first teamers, but they were established. You know, they've been first teamers. You know, they're not kids coming in and learning their trade. You know, we've played with Frankfurt. We've played 12 European games. I think we've played 3 or 4 extra in cup games this season. That's extra 16 games, and we've got less established players in the squad. It was absolutely ridiculous planning this season, and for that, who's to blame for the recruitment? You know, at the end of the day, I think it's a complete mismatch. There has been no policy regarding where the club's going since Enid came in and bought it. Maybe even earlier. No one's actually said, right, you know, they came in, they got rid of George Graham, they brought Glenn Hoddle in quickly. Right, Glenn, how are we going to play this? What kids have we got? What have we got coming through the youth? What are the sort of players you want? And nothing has changed since they bought the club. And they've been very lucky. They've had some really good staff that they've managed to lose in Paul Barber, Paul Mitchell. They've had Michael Edwards, who went to Liverpool and helped build the team with Klopp. They've had, in terms of managers, they've had people like Redknapp, Conte, Jose, Poch, managed to lose the lot. And look at the mess we're in now. They've had an academy player come through who's world class, failed to build a team around him, and now with all the lack of planning that they've got away with for so long, because of these members of staff that have helped. Prime Sonny as well. You know, he came through. Him and Kane were a fantastic partnership. They're all gone. Pretty much, Sonny's finished now. Unfortunately, it's really sad watching him. Can't even take on a man now.
You know what, Luba? I mean, that's the one thing with Sonny. I just wonder. This is again no disrespect to Ange. Will come across disrespectful. That I think under somebody else, I'd like to see what's left in Sonny. I think, you know, very hard. I think at the moment this season to judge a lot of these players, because if you're looking at this season, I mean, if someone was to say to you, how many would you keep and sell? I mean, based on our domestic form, you'd be letting a lot go. I mean, I just think next season under somebody that hopefully will play a system that's more adapted to the players, I'd be intrigued. But I do share your concerns about Son, because there's no doubt about it. It's not been a great season when you compare it to the rest of them. But I think, I don't know, I mean, the TEL one's an interesting one, because the thing, Dave, at the moment is with TEL that, you know, we are going to have to make a decision in a couple of months. And the thing is that Tottenham made it absolutely clear that they're not willing to activate the current fee that I said there to Lubo, 50 to 55 million. And Bayern have also made it clear he's got no future there. Vincent Kompany wants to sell him. So you're in a situation where Bayern are pushing him out and Spurs have got an option to buy him but want to renegotiate the clause. I mean, Do you share Johnny's feeling that, if it's a case where we can't get in for the fee that we want, and also, I think most importantly, if we don't see a decent run of form between now and the end of the season, should we really be sending this player back, gathering our money back up, and going for something like a Delap if he wants to come here? Because someone like Delap, I do think, agreeing with Johnny, I think that is a kind of player that would be really effective in our system. And I've seen enough from him to suggest that he can create something out of nothing. Whereas I think Solanke, as we've seen, I like Solanke, can't question his work rate, can't question his commitment or desire or effort, but he's not a player that can create something out of nothing like Harry Kane used to be. And look, there's a very special player in Harry Kane. We're not going to get another Harry Kane, but we need to get players that I think, like a Jermaine Defoe or Robbie Keane, that could create something out of nothing.
Yeah, look, I remember I was on this show back in January, actually, when TEL was announced. And, you asked me my feelings on it back at the time. And I sort of said, look, where we are and what we need moving forward, he's not the answer to our problems. We needed a guy like Lubo sort of alluded to, and this is what I was saying at the time as well, that can come in, score goals, ready to impact the now situation. We had Solanke and Richarlison out injured at the time, so we brought him to come in here and play up front. And he just hasn't produced the goods. We can sit here and say he's not playing now. When he first came here, he had a good run of games, and he didn't make the most of them, in fairness. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and blame that on the kid, because I don't. Bringing in a 19-year-old to solve Tottenham's striker crisis and forward problems in the January transfer window was never, ever going to be the right solution. You got to remember, at that time, we were still in the Carabao Cup second leg, had an opportunity. We're still in the FA Cup, still had decent time in the league to try and push on. And knowing we had a Europa League coming up where we were coming into the knockout stages. And we needed to go after that with a lot more gusto than what we did. And we absolutely got it wrong. In terms of what we needed and what we brought in, it was never, ever going to be the solution. And I don't blame Matisse TEL for that. I make it clear. I blame the club. But even this summer, even if we're talking about, I don't care how much we get him for, to be quite frank, we need leaders on the football pitch. We need a guy that, and I've been harping on about this since selling Harry Kane, that can step up in moments like last night and be that match winner. That's what we're missing at this football club. We haven't replaced it when we sold Harry Kane. We were never going to get like for like, but we could have done a lot better than what we did in terms of our recruitment in general across the forward line to replace the gap that he was going to leave. But where we are this summer, we need leadership. Postecoglou spoke about it. Every fan is speaking about it, that leadership on the pitch. That money and where we are in the summer is not the right time to be spending on more youngsters that put us in some of this situation in the first place. Not them, but the recruitment in general, not doing the right things in the summer and stuff. They're a part of why we're in this situation in the first place as well. So for me, we need to spend that money on proven players coming in here if we want to match our ambitions, which is winning trophies. Once you've got that sort of squad, then you can start investing into your likes of TELs, ones that you can develop along the way. But right now, when we are crying out for players to grab gains by the scruff of the neck, keep purchasing 19-year-olds like TEL with relative inexperience is not going to help Tottenham Hotspur. And we wonder why we are where we are today. That's part of the reason, by buying in a lot of inexperienced players. And I'm glad we're actually having this discussion about recruitment because, look, this is something I've tried to highlight in the past. We can sit here and blame Postecoglou and his setup and everything else and blame absolutely everything on him. But the reality is, the recruitment absolutely matters in terms of when we're trying to catch likes of your Man Cities, your Arsenals, your Liverpools. That's where your recruitment comes in, and that's where I think the whole project has gone wrong under Postecoglou. We've brought in the complete wrong players for what this guy needs. We haven't brought in quality players in the forward line for a guy with an attacking system, and I think that's where the whole mismatch has been over these last 2 years. What we've recruited and the manager that we've brought in have completely been mismatches. And at the end of the day, if we bring in Matisse TEL, I think you're only adding to the problem where you've got a lot of players that still need to develop, aren't the final product, aren't the finished product. And I think you're only adding to that problem, making the next manager's job difficult because he's still going to have to work with a lot of them guys. And, when the quality's not there, you take a hit on the football pitch. So I keep saying it. Quality in our signings, where we're at right now especially, it absolutely matters.
It does. Lou, we're going to go to you. Go for it.
Ricky, do we think the TEL situation, the TEL potential purchase, is purely because Bayern owe us money? Nothing to do with what's needed in the squad. It's all to do with, again, we go back to Levy again and the money side. What's right for the bank balance and not for the first team. Again, it just keeps happening all the time.
I don't know. That is. I mean, this is what we discussed with Kieran Maguire during the week. That when you look at Tottenham's recent dealings, when you, for example, Leicester City, we bring James Maddison in, you see Skip and Winks go the other way. There's a lot of interesting deals. I mean, the Leeds one with Manor Solomon, for example. Manor Solomon goes to Leeds. We get Archie Graham return. Let's talk about deals with certain clubs that Spurs seem to have reasons with. I mean, there obviously is a situation there where, as Lubo said, money may be owed allegedly for Harry Kane. Spurs feel they may have got a player they looked at in the past. I know they looked at TEL in the past, to be fair. They did look at TEL in the past. Look, I think the thing is with TEL, just to kind of summarise on him, is that, he's got these remaining games to show us why Spurs should be looking to buy him in the summer. And I think if we see similar levels of performance that we've seen between now and the end of the season, we've got a tough decision to make. But again, tricky one, because how many of these players would we all like to see under somebody else that maybe would play a slightly different kind of style and setup, which may give us a different glimpse as to what a lot of these players have looked like? Because I think we saw Bentancur, for example. Bentancur, when he went to Argentina during that international break, he looked absolutely phenomenal for Uruguay. Comes back to Tottenham, and you're thinking, that's not the same Bentancur I watched a couple of games ago. So this is why, at the moment, I think we just need to get to the end of the season and reevaluate. Just a final thing before we do look ahead to some of Ange's comments ahead of the game, where he thinks there's a leak in the camp. For those that have missed it, there might be a leak behind.
Call the plumber.
There's a leak behind the camp. There's been some more interesting news on Scott Munn that's developed whilst actually we're doing this show, and this is from Dan Kilpatrick of the Standard. As I said earlier, with Vinai coming through the door as Tottenham's new CEO, that does mean bad news for Scott Munn, who has worked behind the scenes with limited public profile, but he has made a number of significant changes at Spurs, including overhauling the medical and sports science departments last summer. The Spurs squad have suffered an unprecedented amount of injuries in the second injury crisis that we've had in the last couple of seasons, leading to scrutiny over those changes. So Scott Munn, probably watch your back at the moment, it sounds like, because it does seem all roads lead to what might be a swift exit for Scott Munn in under 12, 18 months. So look, we're going to squeeze in our last break of the show for our listeners and audience. We have got over 4,000 of you that are watching the show live. Thanks as always for your incredible support for Last One on Spurs. I'm joined by Dave at the Irish Hotspur. Please keep liking and subscribing across the shows, and for Dave as well. Johnny, of course, Johnny H3232 on the Insta, and Talking Tottenham 1882 as well. Twitter and X, they're combined. And London Lubo's back in the house. Lubo_61. Love to have Lubo on here as well as we look ahead to walls to come in the Premier League. Look, I'm not going to kid you. I think for a lot of us that we know, main emphasis, of course, is on Thursday night, but Spurs have still got a Premier League game in between, where Ange just said that it's an opportunity to really gain some momentum ahead of that game. Now, he did make it clear, Ange, that he does feel at the moment there is a certain concern with regards to the amount of injury news getting out around the camp at the moment. And I mean, he has suggested that he seems to have a feeling as to where that news is coming from. I'm not sure why we're all smiling about this, because it isn't great. I mean, look, Ange just said that on game day, you want to keep that news private, but he does have a feeling that at the moment, no doubt we've got a leak. Somebody continues to leak that information out. They have all year. I don't know why. It doesn't help us. It just makes our job even more difficult. We really try hard to keep things in-house, like all clubs, but we don't want on game day opposition being aware of any sort of team selection. But we've got somebody within our camp who is continually leaking out the information. We've narrowed it down. We've been looking at it for quite a while, and we've got a kind of fair idea as to who it's coming from, and we'll deal with it. But it's not helpful for us, and half of it is misinformation. Half of it is half the information, but irrespectively, it certainly doesn't help us, because on game day, you want to try and concentrate and keep in as much as you can in-house, and we try really hard to find out information about the opposition, and very hard to. But with us, someone has an open line about what we do, and it's disappointing, because you'd like to think everyone who's in our camp is working with us, not against us. Johnny, what do you think of that?
Well, last I heard, rumour has it that his wife's been taken in for questioning, and his wife, it could be the chief culprit. He probably talks in his sleep. Listen, it could be anybody. Walls have ears, and in an organisation as big as that, this isn't Stalingrad, right? This isn't the Kremlin. You can't. There's only so much information you can keep in, Ricky. Do you know what I mean? Look, he's clutching at straws. This is a guy who's under pressure, who's looking at talking about anything and everything other than what's in hand. That is, try winning football matches. You beat Southampton. You didn't win last night. You've been struggling for months. Okay, let's concentrate on that. Stop attacking fans. Stop making excuses. Put out a team that's going to start winning matches, and let's focus on that, not someone leaking a story about Odegaard's hamstring. Okay, because let's be honest, we don't need to be rocket scientists to know that there's been a problem with the medical department since Scott left, having fallen out with Ange Postecoglou because he didn't believe that the training methods were sustainable. Is that a leak? No, that's fact. He left. Okay. And I think, there's been lots of talk about the influence Davis had with Ange before leaving to go to Birmingham, and what a fantastic job he's done there.
That's a great job.
And yes, he's done a great job there. And I do think, yes, that has had an impact on him as far as the coaching is concerned. But Ange, concentrate on what you know, and let's stick to the football, not the excuses.
Yeah, I mean, again, David, it's another one of those press conferences where you're having to decipher really what comes out of it and try and find a level of sense with regards to what's going on in these recent press conferences. We've had Ange sticking up over mobile phones being waved in his face. We've had him suggesting that the footballing gods are against him and Tottenham. I'll tell you, Ange, that's not a new thing. The footballing gods have been against Tottenham since the day I was born. I think Lubo might even qualify that, and maybe Johnny as well, but we might go even further back. Yeah. But what are you making of these presses at the moment, Dave, and the latest one with regards to there being a leak in the club?
I mean, look, I think if you're the players, and I think if you're Daniel Levy, you're absolutely loving it because he's taking all the attention away from what's actually going on and putting it elsewhere with all these sort of things that he keeps going after in the press conference.
Is that a deliberate tack, though, do you think? Is that a deliberate tack, Dave? What are you making of it? It is crazy, isn't it? It's a crazy one.
Look, some managers do it deliberately to sort of protect their players, but I think they pick and choose their moments more than doing it every week. It seems like every press conference now at this moment in time. Look, it could be a deliberate tactic. I don't know. But what I will say is, a quote like that where he goes, we're close to getting them out of the club. That makes me think that Ange Postecoglou is here next season, regardless of what goes on between now and the end of the season. And just some of the other stuff that he said in recent weeks as well makes me think that he is here for the long term. And that's why he can come out and say some of the stuff he does. That's why he's going after journalists and fans and things like that. Part of me makes me think he will be around here next year. But look, I think it's all just one big side show.
If he is, Dave, you've got this gig full time.
Honestly, I don't know.
I'm not sure I'll be here.
I'm becoming fed up with it all myself at the moment, Ricky. So I'm not sure I want it, to be honest. But no, look, I think it's just classic deflection tactics, right? We know there's a lot of pressure around the club, the players, the protest, everything else. Honestly, I think a lot of it is just taking the attention away, and ultimately, then players keep performing for him. They'll keep him in the job, and ultimately keeps deflecting the attention away from Daniel Levy. He's also going to keep him in the job.
Yeah, Ricky, I found my. I just realised I'm drinking out of a Cluedo mug, right? So there's a possibility that it's Ryan Mason in the cafe with the candlestick. It could be anybody or the microphone that's responsible. Who knows?
What it is bad. Go on.
What I will add, though, just quickly as well, is look. It's not right that injury news is coming out the day before.
I agree. It isn't right. I mean, all joking aside, it's not right. You are correct. It's not right. It's not right.
Yeah, you're sort of helping the opposition manager to a degree and stuff like that. Like, that's not right. That sort of stuff can be kept in-house or should be kept in-house. We're only hurting Tottenham Hotspur at the end of the day. But the reality is there's so many people that work inside a football club now. Bits and pieces are always going to get out. Notoriously have done.
Yeah. I mean, look, the camp itself, we know it's... listen, can it be a happy camp after this? We've had Lubo. I think it's fair to say that... I think I'm looking at you, Lubo, to give me a ringing endorsement of Ange Postecoglou, because I think even for you that might be quite hard. But, I mean, what are you making with regards to some of these pressers at the moment? I mean, this latest one about the leak...
He knows he's going at the end of the season.
That has been my gauge. I think he knows himself.
He knows. You don't start attacking the fans. It's one thing to create
or your staff, but also, I mean, there's a suggestion he's attacking his own staff there as well by suggesting there's a mole inside the club.
Yeah, we've seen managers in the past create this siege mentality, which is all of us against the world, not manager and players against the fans. I'm sorry, it's. I tell you what it's been like last season and this season, and that's okay. The first 10 games were terrific. We're all excited. It was a manager bounce. He was playing a different style of football to anything anyone's ever seen before. I think with 2 at the back, 5 in midfield. I mean, I've never seen 2 at the back before. But I think taking that to one side, it's as though he's sort of transported us into this nightmare, which the last 18 months has pretty much been, with training methods that, I mean, I had a sports therapist say to me who was aware of how hard the players are trained to mirror match conditions, and she said to me, the human body can be pushed up to a certain level, and Ange pushes those players through that level and well into the other side. So you've got lots of injuries. You've got recovery runs that, I mean, every single defender I think has had a hamstring injury. I think maybe bar Porro, who's too far up. I mean, anyway, it's as though we're in this nightmare, and the sooner we can come out of it, and he can go, and we can start playing football like a proper football team.
It's not going to happen. Quality of the squad ain't good enough. I can tell you now, that's not going to happen.
But he's going, Dave. He's going. He is the worst. Next Wednesday for me.
I'm not saying he shouldn't go. I'm just saying, from what I think, the way he answers some of the stuff in the press conference, and a lot of this season, it's been long term. Part of me makes me think he's assured he will be here next year, regardless of my feelings.
I've gone the other way. I'm the opposite, Dave. I've got to say. I mean, especially the recent ones. I mean, the one before the game. I don't know if you agree, Lubo. The one before the game where he was saying, you've all made your mind up anyway. The people have spoken and they think I'm gone. I mean, that wouldn't be a way I think a manager speaks if they do believe they're going to be here. But I mean, maybe you'd argue, Dave, the one that you've suggested is the fact that obviously, again, his press conference ahead of this game does suggest it's more long term because he's talking about getting a leak out of the club. But I think if anything, you then kind of not only have you gone for the fans in recent weeks, you're then going for someone in the club, right? Because at the end of the day, you've already insinuated that leak is coming from inside the changing room. I just think, I mean, if you're suggesting that, you're targeting someone, aren't you? I mean, you are targeting someone within the club, and I don't know. A lot of these press conferences, I know many find them quite entertaining more than the games have been recently, but I know it's it's been a tricky season to navigate, and I think that as we all know, it does all come down to maybe next Thursday as to kind of where we do go from here. But you've got the Wolves game that's in between that. I mean, fascinating to see how it will play out. I mean, that's everyone I can use is fascinating. I know many can't wait for it to come to the end of the season, but yeah, I mean, they'll be in a unique situation because if he does win the Europa League, I mean, I've kind of said in the recent weeks that if he was to win the Europa League, I still couldn't see him surviving. But I mean, again, be the first Spurs manager since 1984 to win a European trophy. Dave, I can see you itching to come back in. What are you going to say on that?
On that, look, I think we're fickle as fans. Look, at the end of the day, if he wins a trophy...
do you know what, Dave? I'm not sure, though. I mean, I think even if he was to win a trophy, and there's a lot of Tottenham... I'm not saying all. I know a lot of Tottenham fans out there that still feel if he won the Europa League, I still feel there'll be many that would say they would still welcome a change. And look, again, is that right or wrong for a club that have won one trophy in the last 17, 18 years? Maybe not. But I think the thing is, I think when you're analysing a manager over one game, rather than looking at the last 18 months, I think that's also wrong. I think your judgment shouldn't be on one game. I think it should be over 18, 19 months to see, has he done enough tactically? Has he shown enough when it comes to progression of players? Has he adapted where he needs to adapt? And I think that's where there's a lot of red flags there. But look, if he wins a trophy, you'd argue he's got over the line, saying that not a lot of Tottenham managers have done, and arguably some of the best in the game have tried to do at Tottenham.
I understand what you're saying, but I'd also argue, if he does get over the line and win a trophy, does that mean that most people that's had the opinion on him is wrong then, saying that he's never going to be good enough to win a trophy? And then do they need to reevaluate where they're at? Because all of a sudden, then, Postecoglou, if he wins, he'll point back to the injury. Said, I told you it takes a massive toll on our season. He'll point back, people like me will point back to the recruitment and say, look, we haven't got it right, but he's made the best of it and stuff like that. So I think, and I think a lot of the media and a lot of the pundits will actually start having conversations like that if we do get over the line in the Europa League.
Yeah. I think go on, sorry.
We're a team of moments.
Yeah, it's moments games. Like last night, it was
Really?
4 minutes. We could have scored 4 goals. I think the hard thing is, Lubo, that, and you'll notice again from being away and home, and as you do, I think at the moment it doesn't feel like he's got a relationship with the supporters. And I think any Tottenham manager to last long at Tottenham within reason, I mean, dare I say, you go back to maybe Harry and Pochettino, you need to have that relationship with the fans, and he hasn't really got that with the away support. Now, look, can he mend that? Can he bring that together in these last remaining Premier League games? And what comes to Europe will be interesting. But it does feel, Lubo, from someone like you and Johnny that do go a lot to the games away from home, it feels like there'll be a lot of mending to do there with the away fans. We're at a point now where he doesn't seem to cross the halfway line to even go over to the fans at the moment, given the nature of some of the results recently.
He's not even trying to mend bridges, to mend fences or build bridges, should I say. He's just not interested. He's just knocking the fans whenever he wants. It's for me, yes, if he wins the trophy, fantastic. Everyone will be absolutely delighted. It'll be a good way for him to go out, because next season, you judge a team over a league season. You can win. You can get situations where teams can have moments during a cup competition and they can go through and they can win them. I mean, you look at, since we've last won a trophy, Cardiff, I think, beat Bradford in the League Cup final. Wigan beat Man City. Portsmouth beat, Portsmouth beat someone Millwall in a final. So you can win it, but there's no substance here with Postecoglou. He's not building anything. It's not like you come in and you start a rebuild. And when he came in, he did have to rebuild. He didn't have much in the way of a squad, and you have people like Maddison coming in, Van der Ven coming in, Udogi, Vicar, etc. So he started building a squad. You've got to build it. You've got to take it on. Year 2 has got to be an improvement on year 1.
Yeah.
Well, manager has made an improvement in year 2 since Pochettino.
No, not since Pochettino.
None.
No.
No manager's improved in year 2 since Pochettino.
We haven't gone backwards.
That's right. What's happened is that we've gone from 5th. We went from 1st. We were 2 points clear at the top after 10 games, to the end of the season where we were 25 points off Man City. So this season, what are we, 36 behind Liverpool at the moment? That working on the average will probably finish up around 45 points. So you've gone from 25 points at the end of last season to a probable 45 points behind the league winners again. Now, that's not progression, is it? We're going backwards at the rate of knots here.
Since the 5th of November 2023, we have lost 36 games, right? Since 5th of November 2023. It's not acceptable for any club, not just Tottenham Hotspur. Look at all the managers below us right now. They've all been sacked. How many managers in clubs right below us? Southampton sacked, Leicester sacked, Ipswich sacked, Wolves sacked, West Ham sacked.
I must say, Ipswich have kept. Ipswich, to be fair, they've kept with Kieran McKenna. I mean, bar Ipswich, you're right there. I mean, but
have they improved since they sacked managers, though?
No, I'm just saying, Dave. Right, so he's kept his job, right, and he's got a worse. To lose 36 games. I'm not going to make excuses for him anymore.
But what Dave's
I'm not making an excuse.
I think what Dave's point what Dave's point is correct on, which is what Ange said last week, is that, and Dave, he said it, and this is what you're suggesting as well. No Spurs manager can afford to have one bad season. I think the problem is that, Dave, I think the issue is that, for example, if you flip that first season around where we started bad and we ended good, I think he'd have a lot more people that are with him. The problem is, because we started so well and we tailed off at the end of last season, and we know how last season ended. We had the defeats to Liverpool, to Arsenal, to Chelsea in there. We won the last 2, I think, against Sheffield United and Burnley. And you look at the start to this season, the problem is that if you take out that 10-game run right at the very start of his reign, we've not really seen any real consistency or improvement in even certain patches to give you confidence that this is going to work with another season. And I think, again, you know what? I do think, Dave, and I think you'll agree with me on this, I think he will go elsewhere and be successful, because there will be, other clubs that will give him what he needs in those respective leagues. But I think the Premier League, as you know, Dave, such an unforgiving league. And I think this league, you require the best possible players in terms of the clubs you're at to be able to achieve what you can do. And I think the problem we got with Tottenham, I've said this so many times on this show, as you know, Dave, that whoever comes to Tottenham, there's a limit about what you can achieve here. And I personally don't think any manager coming in, even in the summer, is going to be able to actually get what they want. So the problem is that when you come into Tottenham, you're going to be handicapped from day one. It is about really who can deal the best with being handicapped from day one. And it's about a coach that gets the absolute most out of the squad they've got to work with. To be fair, like Harry did, like Pochettino did. And I think that's what Tottenham are now looking for going into the summer. And that is why, with no disrespect to the candidates out there that have been listed, that is why that managerial pool now is as small as what it's really ever been for the Tottenham job. Because with all due respect now, the Tottenham job under Daniel Levy is becoming less and less attractive. And so we're in this situation where it goes back to your point, Dave, where it does all point back to what you say rightly, is recruitment.
Look, and this, I'm not sitting here making defenses of Postecoglou, right? I'm not. I'm with you guys. You know, the amount of games we lost, you know, what's happened this season, ultimately, it's gone too far backwards. You know, it has come to the point he probably has to go, especially since the fact he doesn't have his fans on side. You are spot on. You know, that's what other managers have done brilliantly well. But I do think there is an element that we are forgetting what Conte said when he walked out of this football club, where he said you can keep changing managers and think that the managers are the problem at this football club, but we're not. You're not. And you know, you look back since he said that, and we've had 2 years of Postecoglou. He was spot on with what he said. Changing managers isn't alone going to bring success to this football club. And this is the point that I keep trying to hammer at. You know, I do think we are entering the realms. No matter what Postecoglou does, people are just having a go at him. You know, for large parts of the season, people go, oh, he needs to make rotations. Then when he does, people moan about it and stuff like that. And I think it's getting to the point where it's becoming impossible for him, no matter what way he maneuvers. But we have to take stock that and this is what I've been trying to point out all along. Not everything is his fault, and we can keep pinning everything on these guys.
No.
But the reality is, we're not going to come out of it any better. And I understand what you're saying, that we are hoping for a manager to come in and just make the best out of a bad situation. But that's where us as fans have to take ownership and start putting more pressure on the club to start delivering what these guys actually need, so that we can start winning trophies. Because at the end of the day, our ambition, and everybody says it, we want to win trophies. But then we were talking about sacking Ange and going, well, it's a bad situation. The manager just has to make it work. And it's like, we're never going to win trophies like this. If we want to win trophies, we have to take stock of what and highlight what is the club's problem, and stop glossing it over and using Ange as a scapegoat for absolutely everything, so that we can actually get change moving forward. So the next guy in the door actually has a chance to succeed. Because the reality is, you can give me any name right now. Our history since Pochettino, the second year, it's going to go absolutely tits up, and he won't be able to bring what he's brought at other football clubs. And this is my whole point about it. People think I'm defending Ange. I'm not. I'm genuinely trying to say, keep making everything Ange's problem. Keep making everything the manager's problem. We are never going to improve as a football club. We're going to keep going around in the exact same cycle.
I understand. Go on, Lube.
Sorry, Levy, we know, is the owners of the macro problem, and the manager is the micro problem. I think the fans would have a lot more sympathy with Postecoglou if he wasn't so intransigent in everything he does. You know, he had a system that worked in lower leagues. So you try the system out in the Premier League, it hasn't worked. Now, he's not changed it. He hasn't actually thought to himself, do you know what? This isn't working. Plan A isn't working. I've also should be having a plan B and maybe a plan C. But he's not interested. He's just, you know, if plan A isn't working, to the players, go and do it better. And to stand there while we watched, I mean, we watched at Brighton this year, didn't we, Johnny? Those 15 minutes after half time, 20 minutes after half time, where he sat there with his hands in his pockets, doing nothing, didn't change a thing till we were 3-2 down. Momentum had gone completely, and then turned round to the was it Sky? Afterwards, when he was interviewed, and said, you know, when asked why he didn't make the substitutions, oh, well, we weren't playing well, we wouldn't have deserved a point anyway. I mean, seriously, is that not the biggest heads gone? What manager says that? He's there to do his job, and if the players if the players need help and need guidance from their manager, it's his job. It's his job to see a problem.
Yeah, but in the same breath,
It's his job to see a problem, though, Dave, before it happens. If you can see momentum swinging away, you know, we all saw Southgate did nothing against Croatia and against Italy in the World Cup semi-final and the Euro final with momentum swinging away, and Southgate sat there with his hands in his pockets, and Ange's no different. He's no different.
I hear you. Look, that's not excusable whatsoever. I agree with you on that. But you know, like I said, we can keep finding all these small things to go at managers and stuff. But the reality is, Conte told us when he was walking away from this football club.
And you're right, and he's right. Yeah, and he's right. I think the only thing I would say, Dave, is that on that point, and you're right, you can't keep changing managers. All I would argue is that I wish maybe we gave so much more tolerance to what we gave. Well, Ange is what we should have given Pochettino, because Pochettino, if you remember, did drop into the bottom half. I think only for a certain period, and he got the sack for it. Whereas, with all due respect, we've been in the bottom half of the table for a very, very long time. And look, I am going to quickly bring in Wolves now, just to save my marriage and not head for an early divorce. That will come in the summer, knowing my luck of what's to come our way. Because if this discussion is going to be in the summer, we are going to be all screwed. I think if someone said to you at the start of the season, we would only be 5 points apart from Wolves and us come where we are, match day, it's going to be 32, 33 now, and there would be concerns. And we know for Tottenham, look, the big test for Tottenham, of course, lies on Thursday. We've got this game in between against Wolves on Sunday, where this is an opportunity to maybe give players a chance that maybe haven't had a lot of game time, you'd argue, and get them back up to fitness. You'd argue the likes of Richarlison may come back into the mix. You've got Yves Bissouma, you've got Pat Matassar, you've got Ben Davies, you've got Matisse Tell, Archie Gray could all potentially come in. Ange did confirm that there's no fresh injuries. Destiny and Mickey at the end, a couple of small knocks, but the boys are a little bit tired from the game itself, but everyone is also good health-wise. He did confirm there'll be a bit of a combination with Thursday in mind, but also Sunday's a great chance to give some players game time they haven't necessarily had for a lot of the season. He also challenged the players and said, look, a good performance against Wolves could see you get into the first 11 for that second half or second leg against Frankfurt. He knows Wolves are going to bring quite a challenge to Tottenham. He praised the work Vitor Pereira has done at Wolves, which when he came in there, they were in the midst of a relegation battle. And for Wolves, as I mentioned now, they're in a position in the table-wise now where, yes, they are 17th. They are just above the relegation zone, but Wolves aren't getting relegated. They are, 12 points off, or 12 points better off the current bottom three. And, the job he's done there, he's very much made them safe. And they will be a Premier League outfit next season. I think I'm led to believe Matis Cunha will be back for the game. I think his ban does mean that he'll be available for this one.
He won't play. He won't play, Ricky, because Pereira said that he's going to teach him a lesson. For the rumours going out. So Strand Larsen will probably start, and he'll come off the bench. I believe.
Johnny, thank you so much for that. So, look, again, it's an opportunity where you're going to see a mix and a match team. Look, Wolves. I don't think Ange has actually beaten Wolves in the league at all since he's been here. So this is not going to be an easy game. But at the same time, as we've said, it's a game in between a week where we know for Tottenham, the bigger out of the two games, of course, is Thursday against Frankfurt. What we going for? What we thinking? Let's start with you, Lubo. What we thinking of going for in this game? How can you see it panning out? Because again, it's, with all due respect, the least important of the important week coming up. And I know fans won't want to hear that. Fans that are travelling there will want to see a win and confidence for momentum. How can you see it working out?
It's another 90 minutes of chaos, isn't it? Inverted fullbacks, two centre backs, with a lack of options.
Can you see him building though? Is there a chance they can build on Thursday's display in any way, or do you think because of the nature of the amount of changes we're going to make, it's going to be very hard to do that?
Every time we make large wholesale changes, the team plays like they're complete strangers. So I'm not expecting anything on Sunday. But but the way you look at it, do you say to yourself, well, are we going to play a really strong team and risk injury when there's actually nothing? There's nothing on this game. Win, lose or draw, it's neither here nor there. But, at the end of the day, I'm sure he'll probably be told to rest players because it's for the owners. Champions League brings big money. So he's not going to want to, the owners are not going to want Ange to risk their key players.
Yep.
So, so for me, I see a 2-1 defeat.
Lubo, thank you so much. Having you back on the show. Always upbeat. It started off upbeat, and then we looked ahead to Wolves. What can I say? I tried. Lubo, we'll have you back before the end of the season. Keep on surviving in there. Part of that Spurs Samaritan club that is very much been tested to its very much core this season. Johnny, how do you see Wolves playing out? Because again, I said that, and yet to beat Wolves. I think Wolves have always been a difficult game for us. Molyneux's always a tricky venue to go. They have got good players. And we know it comes in the midst of a week where for Tottenham, the main emphasis will be on Thursday. But look, as Ange said, it's an opportunity to go in there with a bit of momentum if we can get a result. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we got a poor record. Yao Gomez always has a good game against us. So does Sarabia. I've unfortunately been at all the games. I think, was it 21? I think 2021. I think since we last won away. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's been quite a long time. I've got double punishment this week, Ricky. I'm not only going to Wolves, I'm actually going to Germany. So God knows what lies ahead of me this week. Listen, I'll be looking forward to actually seeing some of the Wolves players that I'd like to come to Spurs. I'd like to see El Nouri. I'd like to see Yao Gomez, and I'd love to see Matheus Cunha. So hopefully he does get on. But they got a threat up front. They're playing with freedom now. They're not going to be relegated. Pereira's done a very good job of pulling them away from the danger zone. I don't think they've got many defeats in the last sort of 8-9 games.
Yeah.
So I expect us to have quite a bit of trouble. And as Lubo says, when we mix it up, we normally falls flat on our face. But I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there hoping somehow or other, don't ask me how, but somehow or other we end up picking up a victory. But I'm going to go for a draw. And I'm going to go for a Desmond because there's no chance we're going to keep a clean sheet. It's not going to happen. Richarlison won't start. He'll come off the bench because he hasn't had enough minutes. Can't be on that long. But I'd love to see Archie Gray start as a six. Not as much
as Lubo.
Come on. Let's see some action. Let's see some of the players.
Johnny, that's too obvious for Ange, isn't it?
Oh no! Listen, let's see Mikey Moore. Give him some minutes. Stop putting him on
Mikey Moore as well.
Stop putting him in photo shoots, playing games with the women's team. Right? Stop putting him in photo shoots. Give him some football game time. Right? That's what he needs. If it's only the game that's important is on Thursday, give him some game time. Let's see what he can do.
Dave, what are you going for?
Yeah, look, I think we'll make a lot of rotational changes, which I think, will probably, hurt us in the first half or the first half an hour of the game till we get to grips with it. But at the end of the day, I do think it's an ideal opportunity for us to try and build some momentum and some good feel factor heading into that Frankfurt game. So, I'm hoping we can get that win, because winning breeds confidence. So I'm hoping we can beat them. Look, my whole lifetime, I remember back in the day when we had Pav and Nick Keane up front, we struggle against Wolves just in general anytime we play against them. Under Jose Mourinho, we left it late to beat them in the cup.
But Tongan, that's right, the Tongan, wasn't it? For Tongan.
In general, Wolves just give us a tough game. So I don't think we're going to run away with it. I would hope we can maybe snatch a 2-1 win.
Okay, fantastic. Guys, a final one just so you all. I did say to these talkers when I came and I said, guys, don't worry, we'll get out of it in an hour. We'll be absolutely fine here. Now I'm racing downstairs to try and save my marriage as I try and end this show. Yes or no, round the table very, very quickly. On the back of the week we've just had, are we less confident, more confident that we will successfully navigate ourselves to a semi-final of the Europa League? Lubo, yes or no? Are you more confident than what you was last week?
No. About
the same or less confident or?
Less confident. We needed a win yesterday. I didn't think Frankfurt were particularly good. We've seen far better teams come down to the lane this season. Yeah, they're decent, but we missed the opportunity. Not for me, unfortunately. I don't see it.
It's funny. I only asked for a yes or no. There was no chance I was going to get a yes or no, was there? Lubo, you're a star. We'll see Lubo very, very soon. Let's try Johnny. Johnny, more confident, less confident going into Germany next week? Yes or no?
We're going all the way to Bilbao. After we've done this lot, we'll be doing Bodo Glint, which I won't be able to get a seat for because there's only about 8,000 in the stadium.
Sounds like you've done an injury when you take Bodo Glint. Sounds like you've done your back.
I'm going for it. I'm going to be positive. Everyone tells me I'm negative. So would you be if you'd seen 36 bloody defeats. I'm going to go positive. I'm going to say that the stadium is going to be rocking. I won't be able to hear myself think. It's going to be an unbelievable experience. But somehow or other, Richarlison's going to knock one in at the death. I'm going to go for some romanticised, Ajax last-minute shenanigans, right, to win it. Let's hope. I don't care how we win, but let's just win it, and let's just go on and have a positive end to the season. For once in our life, we deserve it. Spurs fans deserve a happy ending. Not that happy ending.
I do agree. I've got to make a laugh. Some of the viewers and listeners who get on the show is superb. Tony Chalkley says, more chance of it snowing in Sydney.
Well, probably has. Probably is right. But...
snowing in Sydney, and we'll get a cup run, and we'll end with Ange lifting the trophy in the final.
Without hope, we might as well give up.
That'll be some ear cup to the fans when he's lifting the Europa League down the Seven Sisters, I tell you. That'll be an interesting reaction.
He goes like that, Ricky. He goes like that, yeah. On the open top bus. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I tell you. Can you imagine? I tell you. Will be fantastic.
And everyone will be singing his name.
And Dave will be there offering him the new deal. Fantastic.
I'll be there with a flare up me hole.
Johnny, you've been a star. Dave, I'll answer the final question to you. Yes or no? More confident, less confident going into the next week and what we got in the live at Tottenham?
We played a lot better than what I thought we would yesterday, so I'm going to say a little bit more confident.
Fantastic. We want to end on a high. I want to say a massive thank you to the wonderful Ian Lubin, London Lubo. Thank you so much. The wonderful Johnny Hamme. Johnny, thank you. And the brilliant Dave at the Irish Hotspur. Look, we've been the last word on Spurs. It all comes down to next week, doesn't it? Let's all bring our way from us all here. Please keep safe, keep well, have a lovely weekend. And as always,